when we started this effort, the first cancer dollars came to Georgia. That was in 1998, and this is what the world looked like then. You can remember some of these things. Does anybody remember what Nokia phones were? I don't know. It was a long time ago. So what we want to do today is look back to this time and where we started and remember the purpose of the Master Settlement Agreement. And then we also want to hear from experts about what has happened in Georgia that's working well. We have panel one, and then we want to hear from experts what are the possibilities for the future, panel two. And let me remind you that that we are developing a new 5-year cancer plan this year, and our aspiration is to have this plan guide investments in the future. So it's been more than 20 years since Georgia received its first funding. We were one of 46 states to enter into an agreement with the tobacco companies, and the industry compensates us in cash every single year. Originally, we thought that this was going to be a 25-year agreement, but ultimately, when the legislation and the lawsuits were written, these funds come in perpetuity, and that's very significant for all of us to remember. One of the things Chairman Parrish and Representative Gardner asked us to be sure of is that we provided accurate information on the source and uses of these funds. So when the first payments came in 2001, Georgia took a bold and a wise step, and we developed a strategic plan for cancer, and we have had one ever since. So that's pretty exciting. You want to know how much money has come through into Georgia from the settlement. Over $3 billion, $3.16 billion in 19 payments. And I can tell you that at the high, this was $307 million, and at the low, it was about $125 million. Either way, it's real money, as they say. And we want to tell you a little bit today about what we've done with the money and the difference that it's making. So the $3.16 billion has translated into $167 million a year. $167 million a year. Each of you has a report in front of you that was just released, and we're very pleased that this was mentioned this morning by Andy Miller in Georgia Health News. When we began our conversations with legislators a few years ago about funding, they said, what happened to that tobacco settlement money? Where does the money go? What's being done? What difference does it make? And this report will tell you a little bit about that. So I won't go into the details, but I do need to mention 3 things that have come out of our analysis, the essential points that we want you to take away. And one is that we need to think about these dollars in 2 buckets. Bucket 1 is cancer-related activities. These are preventing, diagnosing, treating, and curing cancer. The second bucket is everything else. So what is everything else? And that's money that has gone year after year into supporting primarily Georgia Medicaid. And you might ask yourself, well, why does it matter that we look at thing 1 and thing 2, or bucket 1 and bucket 2? The essence of this is that no restrictions were placed on Georgia in how we would use this money, but the intent, the sentiment, and the heartfelt work that went into this agreement was focused on reducing the harm that has been caused by tobacco and ameliorating the health effects of tobacco use. And there's no more vital, frightening, direct correlation to cancer than the use of tobacco. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today as well. So we looked at how Georgia has used funds since the beginning. And in year 1, 27 cents of every dollar went to cancer-related activities. And that seemed pretty good. That's what it looked like in the beginning. Now you can see that only 9 cents of each dollar of tobacco settlement funds goes to cancer-related activities. And we want to make sure that this information is put in front of our policymakers and the General Assembly. And this is not just an aberration. You might wonder, well, you know, was year one a really big year? It was a big year. We had $56 million. But then in the second year, you'll see we had $63 million. But look what happens after that. This is where we go down the slippery slope, and we've never recovered from this. Down, then flat. That's basically the way the funds have been appropriated. So we wanted to look at the last 5 years and say, okay, let's just get a snapshot, because that's a period that's been covered by the most recent cancer plan. Where's the money gone? And this is it. Cancer treatment for low-income uninsured, cancer screening, smoking prevention and cessation, regional cancer coalitions, Georgia Core, and other programs and activities. And the amount of money in this is 5 years for cancer, is $72.8 million. So remember that amount. We're going to talk about it again in a moment. This is $14 million a year in 5 basic areas. And if you want to see what the specific percentage looks like, then we can show you that too. You'll see that this green, and this, don't worry, this is in your materials if you want to look back, but you'll see that this green crescent at the bottom, that indicates that nearly half of the funds that Georgia's received in the last 5 years have helped uninsured Georgians get cancer treatment. That's a good thing. We know that that's important, and we're not disputing that. The rest of the donut is money that's gone to other activities related to cancer prevention and treatment and control and developing new cures. So let's show you what this little bucket looks like against all the other funding that's received from the master settlement. There it goes. Uh-oh, I have to click again for it to come back. Here it comes. Okay, so this is quite a difference. We have a little tiny ball to the left of $72.8 million, which you might have thought was good money a few minutes ago, compared to $619.4 million. So that's the amount that's spent on direct health care. It's quite a difference. And what this tells us is that, again, it's important to help uninsured, underserved individuals who need health care and cancer treatment in the state. No disputing that. But what would happen if we focused on prevention, implementing screening guidelines, helping patients and survivors navigate their care, ensuring that we have centers for the best and most promising research, not only WinSHEP and the other centers represented here, but we have outlets in all corners of the state. We do now. We want to maintain that preeminence. It's something that we can be proud of, and we want to make sure that cancer care is equitably distributed across the state. Rather than spending the vast majority of our funding to treat a few people with health problems and cancer, why not think about early detection and prevention and screening and research a little bit differently? And that's what we hope to do in the next cancer plan. So what we're going to do now is move to our panels, and rather than introduce people individually, we're going to, I'll run through this, announce the first panel, which is the Georgia Cancer Control Consortium, how and why it works, will be moderated by Erin Hernandez with her panelists Cheryl Johnson, Dr. Jim Hotz, and Dr. Lynn Lechtenfeld, and they're listed on your card. And then I'm going to introduce the next panel, because we'll move quickly. We'll go from there to there. And this is the panel on promising opportunities to advance cancer care in Georgia. So this is what we have to look forward to in the future. This panel will be moderated by Angie Patterson, and the panelists are Dr. Bill Mayfield, Dr. Suresh Ramalingam, and Dr. Brian Rivers. And then after this, Cynthia George will give us a wrap-up, and we will be gone. So enjoy more breakfast if you like, and we know that you will enjoy panel 1. I'm going back to your lineup. Erin?
Good morning. Before we get started with our panelists today, I just want to tell you all a little bit more about the Regional Cancer Coalitions and the work that we do. An important part of our work is taking the state cancer control plan and implementing its recommendations throughout the state. We do this by sharing the priorities set for us by the GC3 with our regional providers and healthcare partners, and we help Georgians access the needed screenings in the communities that we serve. In 2013, the GC3 set a goal in the cancer plan to increase the colorectal cancer screening rates to 80 by 2018. Considering that the rates were considerably lower at that time, we knew that this would be a challenge. Some of you may not have heard, but people aren't really excited about getting a colonoscopy, so we knew obviously that would be one of our challenges. And then additionally, the cost of screening and follow-up for these patients really made it prohibitive for most Georgians. The GC3 made a decision to promote the use of FIT testing as a best practice to get more people screened for colorectal cancer. FIT screening is just as effective as colonoscopy if we do it annually, and as my good friend Dr. Hotz says, the test that gets done is the best test. So armed with that guidance from the GC3, we went back to our regions and we educated our physicians on the use of FIT screening to get their patients screened and increase their rates among their patients. Around that same time, we were awarded with additional funding for colorectal cancer screening, and that allowed us to really put some teeth into what we were trying to do. The Northwest Georgia Regional Cancer Coalition partnered with the FQHCs in our area, primarily up in Gilmer County, up around Fannin County. We provided information for the physicians. We provided the clinics with the FIT kits, the lab analysis materials, and then we helped navigate their patients kind of through that screening process, and then also for follow-up if that was needed. From the time that we began our work with the FQHCs, we increased our screening numbers by about 700%. So that's pretty significant. That funding ran for about 3 years, and at that time we had to discontinue that particular project. However, this past year we have had an increase in funding, and so that has really allowed us to go back to the FQHCs, roll this program out again, and they jumped on board and they're ready to do that. So we're really excited to be able to work with them in a meaningful way once again. So what I think I really want you to take away from that story is the valuable work that we do really could not exist without the funding needed to screen individuals and then navigate them to the appropriate care. I think one of the things that the regional cancer coalitions do very well is screening navigation. That's something that, we hear a lot about navigation right now in the cancer world, and most patients do not encounter a navigator until they already have been diagnosed with cancer or in the process or working with an oncologist and have a navigator. So that's something, but many people don't even reach that screening to get that early diagnosis. So I think that's something that the cancer coalitions do really well, and funding really allows us to do that. Also, the cancer plan and the guidance of the GC3, it really represents a plan that is created by Georgians for Georgians, and I think that's really important, especially with having the regional coalitions in core at the center. We all know what works best for people in our region and how to implement that money. It's not just a one-size-fits-all approach. We all kind of shape it to the people of our communities and really roll those programs out to what's going to impact them. And then every day for us, we work with community members, different organizational partners, our healthcare providers, to really complete the work and make sure that we identify people in as earliest stages of cancer. So at this time, our panelists are going to tell us a little bit more about the Cancer Control Consortium, their role, how it works, and why.
Everyone. I'm Cheryl Johnson with the West Central Georgia Cancer Coalition, and the way that I wanted to share is through a story, and it's one of the patients that we saw. It was a Saturday evening in June of 2016, and I received a call, it was, as I said, on a Saturday, from one of my friends asking about the services we provide in the community. After which, she shared with me that she told one of her dear friends who discovered a lump on her breast. It had been there for quite some time, but now it was so large that it could be seen through her t-shirt. Because she was uninsured, she decided to just wait and see if it would go away. I told her I would gather her information and would have someone from our office to give her a call when we returned to the office on Monday. On Monday, our staff called and spoke with Nicole, who was a 57-year-old woman who had just relocated to the area to assist her sister with her niece. She had not had a mammogram in a couple of years.
Now, Nicole was an entrepreneur in the health and wellness business as a certified massage therapist and a certified personal trainer. She discovered the lump on her breast during her monthly self-breast exams, but ignored it, as I said earlier, a few months because she figured it was nothing and that it might go away and it was just maybe something related to caffeine. However, the lump grew larger, and she eventually mentioned it, as I said, to a friend who shared the information with us. Nicole's reluctance was because she was uninsured and did not have a primary care physician, as well as having minimal income because she was just beginning to start her practice, her business here. After being referred to the West Central Georgia Cancer Coalition, she was scheduled for an exam within 48 hours to see our dear friend, Dr. Kenneth Smith. Monthly, we host a breast cancer screening clinic at John B. Amos Cancer Center in collaboration with Dr. Smith. He sees women in the community that we refer with issues or who are in need of a clinical breast exam and or mammogram. Nicole received her clinical breast exam and was quickly referred for a diagnostic mammogram, which was also paid for by the WCGCC. Unfortunately, Nicole was diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer, which we all know can be a very aggressive type of breast cancer. When she was given this diagnosis, she didn't know where to go or the next steps, and she called us back and we stepped in and connected her with the Cancer State Aid Program with the state, where she was able to qualify for the program and then was assigned to an oncologist to begin her cancer journey. She immediately began her treatments, 2 surgeries, chemo, and radiation, and her illness was so sudden and progressed so quickly that she had to abruptly stop working because she couldn't use her hands for the services she provided as a massage therapist, as well as her immune system was compromised. During all of this process, Nicole began to fall behind on her monthly expenses due to her inability to work. Keeping up with basic daily living expenses was a challenge for her, and so we qualified her with our Neighbors Helping Neighbors Cancer Assistance Program candidate. And this is a local program that we've started several years ago, and it's funded through our annual Paint the Town Pink fundraiser. She was able to receive financial assistance with her rent, gas, and electric bills for 3 months. She was also received a gas card to assist with her transportation back and forth. Being a health advocate, after she completed her treatments in 2017, she wanted to do something to give back, so she asked to become an ambassador for the WCGCC. So in 2018, Nicole became a certified cancer exercise specialist, where she trained other cancer survivors to help get them back to their range of motion and just to get back on their feet. And this program is funded through the Department of Public Health in collaboration with the YMCA. Nicole is now cancer-free and continues to be a resource to other survivors in the community. There are countless other Nicoles that we serve in our region, which includes many rural counties without health care. We are in the early phases of expanding our screening programs in the rural counties, and we're here to help provide hope, strength, and courage as many people are facing challenges. Our mission is to reduce the burden of cancer in the communities we serve through outreach, education, screenings, advocacy, and survivorship. Thank you.
Good morning to everyone. I'm Dr. Jim Hotz. Just had my trip past Grady coming up here where I trained almost 40 years ago. And 40 years ago, February 21st, we started our first community health center down in Albany, Georgia. I joined the Public Health Service to do this and also worked in Plains when Jimmy Carter was president. So my organization takes care of 40,000 patients. 21% have no insurance. 87% fall below 200% of poverty. 74% African American. We do 175,000 visits a year, and we've done over 4 million visits since we started. 250 people from our practice die every year. I know what the number one concern is in our practice. It's cancer. There's other things it is, but it's the thing we fear most. And what I've seen through these years, a view from the trenches, it doesn't care who you are. I lost my dad to colon cancer at age 60, my mother to lung cancer, had a granddaughter die at 2 months when she developed intrauterine cancer. So cancer is a terrorist that can hit anybody here. 1 out of every 2 of us is going to experience cancer. So I made it a commitment when we started doing these cancer plans, and I've shared it for 4 times. We're going to do a war on cancer. There are winnable battles out there. What the cancer plan tries to do is to take the whole myriad of what things we can do and looks at the things we should do. Over 100 people volunteer their time and effort to do this, and we've been doing it since 2003. There are winnable battles out there, and what is striking is how poorly we diffuse technology that works. In our state cancer plan, we got a prevention side, we got a screening early detection. There's over 100 people that work on this. We don't get paid a cent for doing it. Why do we do it? Because we've all been touched by cancer, or if you're in a practice like mine, I got to see a 54-year-old lady who's got stage 4 colon cancer, who's in hospice care, who's going to die because she didn't get screened. The 5th patient I saw 40 years ago was a 38-year-old woman with cervical cancer, came in with bleeding. She had a mass the size of my fist, and she was dead, leaving her 4 kids within 8 months. A very nasty way to go. So we do know there's winnable battles. Our biggest killer is lung cancer. We have the ability to decrease the impact of lung cancer 40 to 50%. There's a test out, a lung cancer screening test that was devised 5 years ago, and only 4% of the people are getting it that should be. Jack Mandel and Sidney Winauer 25 years ago showed conclusively could reduce the impact of colon cancer by 70%, reduce the cancer by 70%. It's our number 2 killer, and in Georgia only 63.2% of the people got screened who should be screened. 25 years later, 330 people die each year of colon cancer in the state of Georgia, almost 1 a day, because we're not at 80%, okay? A winnable battle. So these are some of the statistics that are out there. We have 5,617 lives we could save by 2030 if we got our colon cancer screening up. But how do you apply this technology to the field? Well, we have a regional cancer coalition, and Cynthia, wherever you are, she helps run the thing. My organization said we got to do something about it. So what we did is we set up a program with navigation and outreach. We developed a connection with our regional hospital, and what we're able to do is increase our screening rates from 22%, and we just came in at 65%. This is above the state average with all those uninsured. Why is it so difficult? Well, this is a complex process. I mean, I can treat hypertension myself, but for colon cancer screening, I need a gastroenterologist, I need an oncologist, I need a pathologist, I need this team around me. What our navigators do is allow these people with these poor social demographics, 98% show up on time, 96% get a good bowel prep. We've done 2,600 colonoscopies. We've picked up 21 early stage cancers, and 2 of our 10 outpatient clinics, and we cover 8 counties, South Georgia, have over 80% screening rate, and one of them is above 80% cervical, breast, and colon. So we know this stuff works. It's just getting out in the field. And our regional coalition got NCI recognized for this, ARC recognized it, CDC recognized it, National Colorectal Roundtable. So we know it can be done. The point I'm trying to make here is that Edison said genius is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. Those of us in this work are willing to sweat for Georgia, okay? We're willing to get it out there. It took him 3.5 years to go from the light bulb to developing the dynamo, the switches and all that, and he lit up half of Manhattan 3.5 years later. 25 years after Jack Mandel showed you could screen for cancer, we have not lit up half the colons in community health centers in Georgia. We're at 32%. I know we can do it. The idea is to take what works and apply it out in the field. So we've got some good ideas. There's an ECHO project we know works to rapidly translate and get ideas out there. We know roundtables work. We know regional coalitions work. So the idea is how do we translate best practices and put them out in the field. Part of what we need is a strategic, smart investment that follows a really good plan, and we can make a difference. Thank you very much.
Don't start the timer till I get up here, Angie. Give me a minute. You know, the worst part about following excellent speakers is you have to figure out what are you going to say, and I'm rapidly thinking while I'm setting my timer. So give me a moment. You don't have to worry about it. I got my own. I'm Glenn Lichtenfeld, the interim chief medical and scientific officer for the American Cancer Society. And I just want to say, taking away from my time, it's really a pleasure to be here today, particularly with the legislators, with friends, people that I know, and those that I don't who are committed to this cause. And a special shout out to Nancy and Angie, because I think they have done incredible work, they and their predecessors. The impact that they have had on cancer care, cancer research, and education in this state starting a number of years ago is really, I think one of the statistics you didn't show was that lineage of how you've impacted cancer care in the state. It's really remarkable. And so in the interest of time, let me just share with you that in the course of the past several weeks, I've had the opportunity to give some thought and write a little bit and talk a little bit about a couple of items. One was, they're all blocked if you like, but it had to deal with the in cancer care, and we're having trouble with the mic, or am I not directional enough here? Okay, let's try the other one. Okay. Battery's running out. So one was in Praise of Hope, talking about advances in cancer care based on conversations I had one afternoon, and the next day I read a very depressing piece in the newspaper. I sat down, I said, the world is not as bad as this article in the newspaper made it seem. The second one was more recently, the beginning of this year, when we published Cancer Statistics 2019. And we really made some incredible gains in cancer care, cancer mortality in this country, reducing mortality 27% over 25 years. And that really is remarkable, with substantial declines in mortality in several cancers: lung, breast, colorectal, prostate. And the third one was one that I actually just published yesterday, and it talked about obesity, and some research that my colleagues at the American Cancer Society published just this week, talking about the threat that we face from the increase in excess body weight in this country. Not Georgia specific, but clearly the topic of concern here in Georgia. And we found what was really a problem is that our youngest folks, the cohorts that are, as we looked at younger cohorts, the situation was even worse. So how do those three things come together? Well, they come together because we've had some incredible successes, and we have to acknowledge that, but we also have some issues we have to address. And one of those issues, for example, in that report that I mentioned about the 27% was a paragraph, if you would, that was in that paper. And it talked about, despite our success, we need to realize that in our rural communities, preventable cancer deaths are going up, not down, up. In the cities and in areas where we have access to care, they're going down. Preventable cancer deaths. That's critically important. We have 2.6 million people over that 25-year period of time who had a premature death averted as a result of what we can do. And the rural parts of our country, we're not achieving that. And I will tell you that for me, this is personal. For my wife, this is personal. And some of you know this. My wife, Sandra Reed, who's now at Emory, was a doc in South Georgia, grew up in South Georgia. And she took care of patients in South Georgia. We know what this means, and Senator Burke is here. I don't know if he's still with us, but Senator Burke was here earlier, and he certainly knows what it means. So this is really a very personal issue for us. And we also know that we can do something about it. But we have to start paying attention to those things that we can address. And Jim has really done an excellent job of trying to help us understand what can be done. So I like to say a number of my talks. I used to say, we have the way, do we have the will? And I think more and more today, I'm able to say, we have the way, we have the will. And I'm going to stand here today to say, when we look at these numbers, when we hear these stories, when we understand the importance of planning and the role it has in education, and education is critical, in prevention, in access, in quality care, and unfortunately, even extending to hospice and palliative care, which is something that this state has in fact committed to, we can get this done. We have the way, we have the will. Are we going to make the commitment? One of the most difficult stories that I read, and I know I'm coming up on time, Angie, but there's a story that was in the AJC, and I think it's a story that I try to share with people around the country. And it talked about Webster County. And I don't know if any of you know Webster County. It's on 520. That's you? Okay, well, I've had the chance to stop in Webster County at Merritt Pecan, right? And that's some really good chocolate pecan pie. Mom's kitchen, dare I say, not as good as my wife's kitchen. Okay, that's the issue. But, so you have to always keep that in mind. You know, mama knows, but my mama knows, right? But here's the sad story that they told. They talked about access to care in Webster County. There's no primary care physician. There was somebody, a pharmacist in the gas station they talked about. Is she? And they talked about people who walked 11 miles to Columbus, Georgia, walked to get care. We can talk about Uber. We can talk about Lyft. You can't talk about walking from Webster County to Columbus, Georgia. That's what we face. And as Jim has pointed out so eloquently, and has been said by others, will be said by those that follow, we have the opportunity to make a difference. We have the money to make the investment. Now we have to have the will to make it happen. I just want to close real quickly, Angie. This morning in the New York Times, if you go to my Twitter feed, you'll actually see the link to the article. It was an article about a young lady, 42 years old, who passed away from colon cancer, who wrote a blog, and apparently it was very well received. She was the American story, Vietnamese refugee, blind, escaped on a boat, went to college, law school, and developed colon cancer. And 42, probably, I don't know the story behind it, but she just died. And this is the stories in the New York Times. And they talked about hope. And I started this by talking about in praise of hope. And she said a quote, and I'll close with this. Hope is a funny thing. It seems to have a life and will of its own that I cannot control through the sheer force of my mind. It is irrepressible, its very existence inextricably tied to our very spirit, its flame, no matter how weak, not extinguishable. Every citizen of this state deserves hope, deserves the opportunity, and if we afford them that, we will be incredibly grateful for holding ourselves accountable to maintaining that hope. So with that, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. That was fabulous. Great panel. Thank you for the first panel. I'm Angie Patterson. I'm the Vice President of Georgia Core, and we received notification that Dr. Mayfield, who's supposed to be on our second panel, is ill today. So he was going to talk about the Lung Cancer Roundtable, which is a phenomenal effort that has been birthed out of Cancer Control Plan. The Georgia Lung Cancer Roundtable is actually highlighted at the National Lung Cancer Roundtable for the success that we have in collaborating and educating people about lung cancer. So I'm really sorry he's not here to share the story about that. So I have been working with Jim since 2005 on cancer control. He and I have been the co-chair since 2012. Seems like since 2000. But anyways, it's been a wonderful honor to chair this great consortium that we have. And so today, I'm going to talk a little bit about survivorship, which those of you who know me are not surprised by that. I chair the survivorship working group that's part of Comp Cancer. And it's one of our top priorities that we are focused on here in Georgia. We are in the process of writing our next 5-year plan, and survivorship will be a key component of that as well. So because of all the advancements, you've heard about some of the great advancements we have. You'll hear from our next panel. Because of the advancements in screening and in treatment, we have more survivors living in our state. Today we have more than 410,740, I think, is the number that ACS has projected of survivors living in our state. And one of the key components we have to focus on, for those that we can't prevent cancer, the Georgians that are diagnosed with cancer, we have to help them, we have to educate them and address their long-term and late effects. So my moment I want to share today is one, I'm a survivor myself. I've been a survivor for 18 years, and during that time I've been a caregiver to my mother, who is a 2-time lung cancer survivor. She was diagnosed the first time with lung cancer because of a pre-op x-ray, not because of the lung cancer screening that we have here today. But also I want to share with you my brother-in-law. 2 years ago, my brother-in-law was diagnosed with metastatic melanoma to the brain, and he went through surgery. They removed a tennis ball-sized tumor. And after that, he has undergone immunotherapy and radiation. But several years ago, that diagnosis would have meant he would have passed away within a very, very short period of time, a matter of months. And he's here today, almost 2 years later, because of immunotherapy. And so we have to continue these promising opportunities to transform cancer care. Now, he has a lot of side effects, as you might know. Immunotherapy, chemotherapy has a lot of side effects that he's dealing with. And so we have to really focus on the quality of care and quality of life for survivors. So that's my pitch for survivorship. So at this time, I'm going to share, introduce, or have our two panelists that are here, and unfortunately Dr. Mayfield is not here, to talk about some of the other impacts to transform cancer care.
Thank you and good morning. First of all, I want to thank Nancy and Angie for bringing us all together, and thank all the legislators for being with us today. My name is Suresh Ramalingam. I'm a medical oncologist. I serve as the Deputy Director of Winship Cancer Institute of Emory University. As Nancy mentioned earlier, in 2017, Winship received the designation from the NCI as a comprehensive cancer center. And that's one of 50 centers across the country with that designation. Now, the Comprehensive Cancer Center designation is afforded to institutions by the National Cancer Institute based on not just the research they conduct, but also making sure that that research is impacting the community and the region that they serve. And at Winship, our mission is to reduce the burden of cancer in the state of Georgia. And we do that by aligning our outstanding strengths in research, patient care, and education. As a medical oncologist, especially somebody who focuses on lung cancer, a few years ago, if I came across a patient with advanced stage lung cancer who made it for 5 years, I would say that patient is an outlier. Now, we expect that for every patient that we see, that this patient is going to beat the odds and make it beyond 5 years and potentially be cured. And we're able to do that because there's never been a more optimistic time and never been a more exciting time for cancer research and cancer care in the world. We are now able to use very exciting technology on top of our increasing knowledge of the biology of cancer to produce these results for patients. We're able to study the tumor genome, sequence the genome, understand what are the specific characteristics of the tumor, not of anybody with lung cancer or breast cancer, but of the patient sitting in front of us, and then come up with a treatment plan that will specifically improve the odds of that patient benefiting. We do that routinely for our patients at Winship. We also have a new tool in the kit in the form of immunotherapy, which was mentioned earlier by Angie. Immunotherapy is a way by which we can turn on a patient's own immune system to go and fight their cancer. And that often results in durable responses. Now, we're not seeing every patient respond, and that's our challenge. How do we make sure that immunotherapy and targeted therapies that we give patients result in maximal benefits for every single patient? What is unique between patient to patient? What is unique about patients whose immune system does not respond to immunotherapy? How can we turn that situation around and make sure that those patients have great outcomes? That's what we think about every day at Winship. That's what we work on. Now, if you look at how immunotherapy has evolved over the past 30, 40 years, there's been a lot of research, but it's only in the past 5 years that we've realized the promise of immunotherapy. We've realized the promise of personalized therapy, genomically based targeted therapies. And we are able to do that by investing in research, by bringing people together, teams of researchers. No one researcher can come and say, I have the cure for cancer. We bring together teams, not just from Winship. We work with institutions across the state. We work with our community oncology partners across the state. I also have the fortune of being the president of the Georgia Society of Clinical Oncology, which is an organization in the state that brings together professionals that are in the front lines of cancer care and research across the state. And these sort of collaborations allow us to not only provide better care, but provide optimism, bring tomorrow's treatments to patients today. And that is our goal, is how can we make sure that every patient has access to cutting-edge treatments, cutting-edge research, and be able to participate in clinical trials. At Winship, We have a number of exciting programs, but when we look specifically at what are challenges in Georgia that are important to address, not tomorrow, but today, tobacco-related malignancies provide an undue burden. Compared to other states, we have a higher burden of tobacco-related cancers. We also have a large minority population that have high prevalence of certain cancers, and some of them are more aggressive, like breast cancers, certain subtypes of breast cancers in patients of African descent. We have a health literacy problem that's disproportionately higher than other states. How do we make sure that what we're communicating with the patients are able to reach them? We have researchers at Winship that think and work on that particular topic. How do we make sure that every patient has what are the barriers to screening? We talked about screening earlier. How can we make sure that patients go for screening and have the chance to beat their disease? So these are some of the areas that we think that we need to address as a society, as a state today, and we're investing in those. Now, lastly, I'll say that while the time for optimism in cancer has never been better, our research fundings have been flat from the federal government and, as Nancy pointed out, from local level as well. And as a result of that, we're losing promising researchers from our training programs that are not going into research because they don't feel they can get funded and be able to participate in research. I think we need to make sure that we bring the best minds from across the country to work with us, work across the state with all our partners, academic and community, and make sure that our patients with cancer across the state of Georgia are in no way at a disadvantage when it comes to receiving top quality cancer care and access to top quality research. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Brian Rivers. I'm from Morehouse School of Medicine, and I direct the Cancer Health Equity Institute at Morehouse. So I'd like to also thank Nancy as well as Angie for all of their noble work over the past years as relates to addressing the burden of cancer within the state of Georgia, as well as American Cancer Society, and then the partnerships and everyone in this room, because I think you're here for a reason, and that's the commitment to eliminate cancer. And so I've recently been in the area for probably going on 3 years, but I grew up in Atlanta, right on the south side. Went to public education in Collier Heights as well as Frederick Douglass High School. Then went off to Vanderbilt and training. Took me a couple more places around the country for about 20 years, and now I'm back. And, you know, I count it a privilege to be able to serve in this position at Morehouse School of Medicine to you know, where we're leading in the advancement as well as the creation of health equity, especially in cancer. You know, I'm very fortunate enough to have been fully funded probably for the past 15 years through the National Institutes of Health, a variety of institutes and centers from the National Cancer Institute, the National Institute of Minority Health and Health Disparities, and most recently the National Institute on Aging, as well as NCATS, the Translational Institute. We have the only Cancer Health Disparities Initiative funded by NCI in the state of Georgia. It's under the PATCHY initiative called Partnerships to Advance Cancer Health Equity. It builds on a lot of the work that we've been doing within the context of the American Association for Cancer Research. And just as a quick plug, their annual meeting will be here this spring. You know, this past October, we convened a think tank in D.C. With 35 experts from around the country, you know, cancer health disparities. There was 3 priority areas that were identified, and there's going to be a white paper there that's coming out, as well as some other documents that Congress has asked for as relates to, you know, really advancing cancer. The 3 priority areas included workforce development, and I think you touched on the issues that we're seeing in the field of cancer with the flat pay lines and how it's impacting the academy. Also, basic science and discoveries within the translational framework. How do we get those seminal discoveries into practice, into communities? But even more so, those communities that are disproportionately impacted by cancer. You know, we've seen and witnessed tremendous advances in the field of cancer, but realizing that not all populations are able to benefit from these translations. And a lot of this research is funded with government, with taxpayer dollars. But yet and still, all these discoveries, great discoveries, immunotherapy is one in particular that's really taken off, is revolutionizing how we're treating cancer.
but not all populations are able to benefit from these seminal discoveries. So we're working within a translational framework at the Cancer Health Equity Institute at Morehouse School of Medicine. We always call it CHE, so we rarely say it out. And Nancy's very much a part of our activities. She's on our advisory board for outreach, and she brings tremendous impact and capacity in terms of helping us detail and translate a lot of these discoveries to populations that need them. And then the other priority area was minorities' participation in clinical trials. And that continues to be a huge issue right now. And I'm working with Georgia Core as well as Grady Hospital in terms of, what systems or what interventions can we put in place. So I'm a behavioral scientist by training, and a lot of my work is in implementation science and interventional research. Again, taking those that we found at the bench and bringing them to clinic as well as community to seeing what type of impact that we're having. So we have 3 studies that I'm going to quickly review. Angie is part of all of them. And one is called Cancer Care Connect. It's at Grady Hospital. And we're actually trying to characterize the use of survivorship care plans and the role of health system navigators and community navigators. And what is the feasibility of linking health system navigators with community navigators to ensure continuity of care? In 2005, the Institute of Medicine produced a report called Loss in Transition. Loss in Transition, that really chronicled the fragmented infrastructure that cancer survivors are left to face. Out of that report came 2 recommendations: navigation and survivorship care plans. And that is what Georgia Core has been leading, and it's just a great addition to be able to work in collaboration with Georgia Core to advance it, especially for populations that we know are underserved or are not getting these needed recommendations. Another initiative we have working with Grady is called Impact 2.0, increasing minority participation in clinical trials. And this is an initiative that we have in collaboration with all the clinics at Grady that we're really trying to understand, referral patterns. And how do we take the onus off physicians or the nursing team who's really overburdened already with just delivering outstanding care? And so we're testing out different models, a multi-level model that entails looking at the use of mobile health applications as well as clinical trial navigators. Third study that we're working on is funded through the National Institute of Minority Health and Health Disparities. That's really looking at the sequelae of events that happen once a man receives the diagnosis of prostate cancer. We know sometimes men get paralyzed and then they stop, they don't do anything. Then others are totally confused. So we're testing out a multi-level intervention to look at the role of stress as well as health literacy and then quality of life as it relates to being diagnosed with prostate cancer and moving with ease across the continuum. And we're particularly focused on African American men, and we're working with GC3, the Georgia Prostate Cancer Coalition, in that regard as well. And then very lastly, we're working with, through a partnership, the Georgia CTSA, so I'm the program director for integrating special populations. And we're really looking to increase the robustness of the infrastructure in the state of Georgia as it relates to, one, accruing individuals in research, but then also into clinical trials, but then adding value to the existing activities. So we're working with UGA, working with Emory, we're also working with Georgia Tech, and really trying to build the infrastructure, as it relates to, again, translating a lot of our discoveries really into practice and also into the community. And so, again, I'm happy to be here. Back in Georgia, I've been here for about 3 years. I find Georgia Core a tremendous resource in terms of just leading how and what we do as it relates to, eliminating the burden of cancer for, many populations. And I think someone said it earlier, I think the focus is now on rural populations in the state of Georgia. The need is just immense. I've been in rural, in southern Georgia, been up in rural northern Georgia. It mirrors each other greatly, and we have a tremendous amount of work to do. But the best news is that we have some outstanding mechanisms in place to help us get out into these different parts and add value. So thank you.
I wanted to say, first of all, Dr. Hotz, if you were an evangelist, we would not have to worry, the whole world would be saved. I kept waiting for a few amens and hallelujahs, but just glad he's in Albany. a couple of things hit me while I was sitting here, and I'm in a learning phase with this organization, but I couldn't be more passionate about it. One of the things that I kept hearing throughout was the importance of navigation. And just you'll just think about this for a second. A navigated patient is 8 times more likely to show up for their appointment and to show up prepared for their appointment. That's a lot. And when a busy doctor, a busy hospital has made time to treat some of our patients that don't have the funds or don't have enough of the funds, the least we can do is get them there and get them there on time, and then think what that means to that patient. It's just such an incredible service to people in our community that need it. And I think that it follows through with not only for the treatment, but in the aftercare and the support. We have to figure out a better way to do that. If you had a choice of spending $110,000 to treat someone for colon cancer, or $3,000 to get a colonoscopy, which would you do? It's a real logical decision in my mind, and it's the right thing to do. And that's what these organizations work with all the time, is trying to do the right thing. And so it was especially eye-opening to me to look at the report when I had heard for years about the tobacco settlement funds and to know where they go. But it was also really telling to me of the people that didn't know where those funds were going. And I think it's important for us to realize that we could really and truly make Georgia the most successful state in the country for preventing cancer. Money does do it. It's one of those things that when you put the money there, then you're able to make the difference. And it's been very eye-opening to me to see the history and also to appreciate what we've been able to do with what we've had. I wanted to thank Nancy and Angie, heard that over and over again this morning, but for their leadership in working with us as cancer coalitions and on the state level with hospitals and physicians, our partners, that we could not do what we do without those organizations. And to thank our sponsors this morning for helping us bring this breakfast to all of you. We are going to be hitting the pavement. For those that weren't here this morning and those that were, we're coming to see you. And we hope that you'll take a few minutes to let us share just a little bit about our story for the year and what we think we can do with it. So thank you this morning for coming. We appreciate our panelists for participating with us this morning, and we will see you throughout the next 4 to 8 weeks significantly, and then hopefully we'll stay in touch with you throughout the year. Thank you for coming this morning.